I'm Charlie. I work for a design cooperative in Oxford, focusing on housing, environmental justice and social justice projects, and various other bits of architecture. These shoes were bought just before I went on a trip to Italy, and were chosen particularly for their comfort above all. I tend to rely on this pair of shoes for whenever I'm walking long distances in cities. So home is Leeds, and in the north of England, and so the furthest place I've been with these pair of shoes is Australia, where I lived for a year. They were bought before that trip, and took me thousands of miles on different road trips and various cities that I worked in. A particular amazing moment I had in these shoes was in 2013. I went up to near Blackpool, where they were holding that year's Reclaim the Power climate camp, which is the first one that I'd been to, and was an amazing introduction to environmental activism and people coming together around quite tough, quite ambitious issues, but feeling like they could conquer them together. And so that was an amazing moment that turned my attitude around to how change can happen, not only within cities where we work mostly at the moment, but on a broader scale on many issues, that a lot of it comes down to the connections people can make between them in order to kind of alter situations which are going against the majority of people, which is lots of the issues that we try and work on here. For me, the special things in the city, because I come from an architectural background, tends to be the tiny details, and it's a city that's rich in material and texture, the cobbles and the edges and foot scrapes and kind of peeling back doors that have been there for a long time, and trees that are pushing walls through. You can see the kind of imprints of time on this place, the amount of people that have kind of trod these streets and probably thought that they were changing worlds in big ways, and perhaps their effect was just kind of a tiny snippet. But so aesthetically I do like to spend time here, and especially in the evenings, because the stone shines really vividly in kind of late summer, twilight hours. So it's quite an impressive place to be in at that time. I tend to look forward to quieter days at the moment, and have done for quite a while. It feels like we're pushing so hard at some of the things we're working on, that we just generally don't have evenings or bits of time to relax, and getting better at that. But that's what I'm looking forward to, is prolonged time where there's not much to do. I have a really good job and great people around me that I work with, and we're all fairly equal in each other's eyes, and so I don't have a problem leaving the house and going and doing what I do, because we're privileged position to be in. I spend a lot of time sending and answering emails, far too much time. The work is working with community groups, mostly across the city, in various projects on land and with existing properties, to how we might build some either community owned or community managed homes, preferably affordable ones. And so some of my role will be strategizing that with them, and working and going to meetings and helping them understand how they might carry out certain models, whether they be legal models or governance models, how they might campaign for certain things, all the way through to how will the project be financed and how does a housing scheme pay for itself. My way of life is fairly relaxed, in that I don't get fazed too easily about issues. I'm fairly slow and methodical and rigorous in the way in which I work, and the same goes with dealing with various tasks and things within life. I would say, yeah, I've imagined myself in other people's shoes, particularly with good storytelling. It seems to be a way of pulling you out of your current reality and sort of slipping into someone else's story. That being through kind of spoken word storytelling, so just verbal storytelling where you can be really gripped by a voice and facial expressions. And it also doesn't need to be that person's real story, but it helps to believe that it is. I think every human should have the access to calm and peace, the ability to not feel worried. I think that sort of extends into security of your living situation, because it's so heavily linked. And so I think people knowing that they've got somewhere to go back to that they can call home, and to know that they can stay there for as long as they need to, and that doesn't impose sort of unrealistic burdens on other parts of their life through paying too much for it. And I guess on top of that is to have connection to people, and people that care about you and are happy to support you when you need it, which is, I heavily believe in cooperative working and cooperative housing, and that is the central principle is being able to support each other whenever they need it. It is important to have the freedom to move, and I think everybody should also have access to it. I guess I'd like you to understand that I'm trying really hard to know as much as possible about the way in which the world works, so that it allows me to relate to people better and to make people's situations better. I don't think I need to be remembered. I haven't had that feeling yet, and I'm absolutely fine with dying. I want to be remembered now while I'm still alive by the people that I'm interacting with. When I'm gone, I don't really feel like I need that. I guess in my new shoes, I'd like to probably keep going the same direction. I don't really know what I want from the future. I don't really want to plan it either. I'd like that there's some surprise and excitement and friendships and love in there at some point, but there's nothing specific that I'm chasing. Just keep walking fairly slowly around interesting places and interesting people, and hope that can go on for as long as possible, and hopefully people can come with me.